Hey guys, Metallic28 back again, here to bring you guys another video. This one's going to be part 7 of my 2014 Mets regular season series, and in this video I'm going to talk about how a recent rumor has floated up in the past couple days regarding the Mets making a huge trade to acquire a shortstop, and it's probably the shortstop you guys probably never would have thought of, but I'm going to explain it to you right now in this video. So, in recent days, I was on the internet. I was searching on Mets rumors like I usually do, and it didn't take a while for this one to catch buzz right away. I mean, pretty much immediately after the Chicago Cubs traded with the Oakland A's for to let go of Jeff Samardzija and Jason Hamill for the Oakland A's top shortstop prospect Addison Russell and Dan Straley. Immediately after that trade happened, all of a sudden the Cubs have an overabundance of shortstops. They obviously have Starlin Castro, who I'm going to be talking about in the video. They have Addison Russell now, and don't forget, they still have the power-hitting, slugging shortstop Javier Baez in the system, who's going to come up real soon. Okay, not to mention they have Mike Olt in the infield, Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant. So the Cubs are shaping up to be a really good team for years to come. I mean, they are close. The Cubs are right there. They just need all these guys to come up now and deliver at the major league level. The Cubs are still, I would say, 2 to 3 years away from finally being a formidable foe in the NL Central. But immediately after that trade, all of a sudden, you hear rumors that the Mets are all of a sudden monitoring shortstop Starlin Castro, and that they were very, very interested in acquiring him. And they even and to the point where people are saying that this is a perfect match. But when you really sit down and think about it, it is a perfect match because the Cubs have now too many shortstops, and now they're going to be they're looking like a team that's going to be offensively driven in the next couple of years. But they're missing pitching now, like desperately missing pitching. Their best pitcher now is definitely what's his name? Not Edwin Jackson, the other guy. Whatever, I forgot. But yeah, you see, that's how bad the Cubs pitching is. I even forgot what they are. So they need pitching, while the Mets have pitching, but they need a shortstop, and they need a slugging, preferably a slugging shortstop. And there's only like 2 or 3 in the NL, and that's Tulowitzki, Castro, and Hanley Ramirez. So the Mets will get one of the best shortstops in all of baseball. He had a bad season last year, but this year he's obviously turned it around. I mean, this guy right now is hitting, I'll tell you right now, Starlin Castro this year bounced back in a big way. Right now he's at 11 home runs with 51 RBIs and hitting 280. He also has, let me see, he also has, let me see. His on-base percentage is 326, so that's not that good. He's only struck out 65 times. He's drawn 22 walks, and he only has 3 steals. But and his slugging percentage is 452. So and his OPS 778. So I mean, not the best numbers there towards the end, but I mean, the homers and the RBIs speak volumes to what the Mets could have over Ruben Tejada. This right now is the perfect opportunity for the Mets to do this. However, the only problem that I've been hearing is that the Cubs are asking for Zach Wheeler and Jacob deGrom. Hold on a second. The Mets should not and will not trade Zach Wheeler and Jacob deGrom for Starlin Castro. I'm sorry, that should not happen. But this is my trade proposal. With the way Noah Syndergaard has been pitching in AAA Las Vegas, I don't know if it's just because it's Las Vegas or if it's him, but this guy right now is letting a lot of people down. But he's still the Mets' top prospect in the entire farm system and one of the best pitching prospects in all of baseball. So I would rather the Mets keep Zach Wheeler and trade away Noah Syndergaard, because if you really think about it, Noah Syndergaard was obviously acquired through the R.A. Dickey trade at Toronto, and so was Darno. But by trading Syndergaard for Castro, it's basically trading the Cubs half of R.A. Dickey for basically Starlin Castro, and that's a bargain. Zach Wheeler, the Mets already have a more connection with because he's been here since last year. Him and Matt Harvey are good friends now. That was basically the 1-2 punch that the Mets fans were talking about for years now. It was always about Harvey and Wheeler. It was actually about Wheeler first and then Harvey. Syndergaard came later on. So there's more of a connection with Zach Wheeler, and this guy has more potential. You know what I'm saying? So, well, in a lot of people's eyes. People now are saying Noah Syndergaard has more potential than Zach Wheeler. But that remains to be seen. The guy has not been good in AAA at all. But Zach Wheeler was pretty much the same way. He wasn't as bad as Noah Syndergaard is right now, but he was still not that great. So I would rather make more trade pieces involved than trade Zach Wheeler. So it's not going to take just Noah Syndergaard. It's going to probably take more guys. So what do? I look at the catching situation with the Cubs right now, and I see that Wellington Castillo has not lived up to the hype that he's had since coming up in the Cubs farm system. He's now about 26 years old, so he's still young, but he's getting up there now. I still think that the Mets have faith in d'Arnaud enough to make him the catcher of the future. He's obviously bounced back ever since he came back from AAA. So why not trade Noah Syndergaard along with catching prospect Kevin Plawecki, okay? Along with outfielding slugging prospect Cesar Puello, and then another piece, maybe Matt Dendecker. All those 4 guys for Starlin Castro and a reliever in the likes of like Pedro Strop. That deal looks a lot better. More pieces involved, and the Mets can take on that contract, and I see no problem with that. Now you're talking about a trade, a realistic trade that can happen. Okay, with that trade, the Mets payroll right now stands at about $86 million. Okay. So by getting that trade done, you're shaving off around $2 million in terms of all the contracts that I just mentioned with Syndergaard, Plawecki, Dendecker, and Puello. And you're tacking on Starlin Castro's $6.3 million. Starlin Castro's and Pedro Strop's like $6.3 million combined for this year. The Mets payroll would bounce up to $90.33 million, which is still obviously reasonable. So it's not going to cost that much. Of course, in 2015, his contract is going to go up just a little bit by $1 million. But, not so bad. So, I don't see why the Mets don't make this trade. Or the Mets have to make this trade happen. And then you're looking at a lineup now that's going to feature Eric Young Jr., Daniel Murphy, David Wright, Curtis Granderson, Castro, Duda, Lagares, d'Arnaud, pitcher spot. Holy fucking shit. That lineup is a lot better. What do you guys think? Hello. The other trade, obviously, that I'm looking at that I've been saying for months now is for Carlos Gonzalez. Right after they make a trade for Starlin Castro, if they even do that, they should go out and instead of waiting for next year, make the trade this year. Now that Dylan G's come back from the DL, and Brandon Nimmo got called up, and Michael Conforto is going to sign with the Mets soon, the first round pick from this year, and you still have the development of Gabriel Ynoa and Michael Fulmer, Wilmer Flores, guys like that. Why not trade all those guys for cargo? You're looking at the Mets trading Dylan G. Okay, so the centerpiece is going to be revolved around 4 guys: Wilmer Flores, Dylan G, Brandon Nimmo, Michael Conforto. Okay, with the other 2 guys, Gabriel Ynoa and Michael Fulmer as the pieces thrown in. Dylan G is a valuable starter in the major leagues. He's proven. Okay, he has a lot more potential to be a number 2-3 type of guy. Right now in the Mets rotation, he's like a 4-5. He has the potential to be a 2-3, possibly a 3. You throw him into the Rockies rotation. You throw Wilmer Flores. Could you imagine Wilmer Flores exploding balls out of Coors Field, playing second base for them? He's finally got his position there in Colorado. He's obviously going to start over DJ LeMahieu. So Flores would be a perfect fit in Colorado, and he's not going to be a fit with the Mets, obviously. And then you throw in Michael Conforto, the guy that everyone's saying that he's the closest to Major League ready in terms of all the Mets offensive prospects. You throw him into the mix, the first round pick from the Mets this year. He's not going to have any room on this team because they would have Cargo and Lagares and Granderson, so send him away. And you also send Brandon Nimmo away. Now you're probably wondering, why are you sending both Nimmo and Conforto? Well, here's the thing. Here's the logic. If the Colorado Rockies send away Carlos Gonzalez, they obviously lose an outfielder. You don't count Drew Stubbs, and you don't count Brandon Barnes. So all they have left then, basically, for this year at least, is Kadire, Blackmon, and Dickerson. However, Kadire is most likely going to leave via free agency next year, so they're left with 2 guys. Really, Charlie Blackmon's the only guy that's good there, center field. Corey Dickerson's looked up more like a 4th outfielder type of guy. Conforto will come up this year, most likely, or next year, I should say. Sorry, Conforto will come up next year. And next year in 2015, you're looking at Conforto, Blackmon, and Dickerson. And then sometimes toward the end of 2015, Nimmo's going to be ready to come up, and Nimmo will take Dickerson's spot. So then the Rockies outfield is set for years to come. Their infield set were Arenado and Tulowitzki and Flores and Morneau and Rosario. Their team is stacked. And then their pitching is set with Shaquin, Jorge De La Rosa, and Dylan G right behind them, and Brett Anderson. Why not? This team is a lot better this way. And then, of course, you throw in 2 other pitching prospects in Gabriel Ynoa and Michael Fulmer. Gabriel Ynoa, as of right now, is the number 12 prospect on the Mets list, and Michael Fulmer is number 14. So they're pretty high on the Mets' top 25 list. So with that, the Mets are trading away a lot of pitchers, but it's worth it for a guy like Carlos Gonzalez. And then with the payroll, the Mets will be adding Carlos Gonzalez's contract for this year. In that trade, they would be shaving off $3 million. right? Actually, $6 million combined with Dylan G was just like $3 million, and then the other $3 million combined with Nimmo, Conforto, Yanoa, Fulmer, and Flores. So that's like $6 million they're shaving off right there from the payroll, and then you're adding on $10.5 million from Cargo's contract for this year. Then the payroll will basically bounce up to $94.8 million for 2014. That is beautiful. That's very realistic for the Mets, and now you're looking at a team that is ready to compete for 2014 and beyond. And then in 2015, with the addition of obviously the returns of Matt Harvey and Bobby Parnell, the Mets are going to get even better. You're looking at their payroll getting bounced down with the deduction of Chris Young's contract of $7.25 million. So let's go over the payroll now, the way it's constructed. With all those trades I just made, they're at $94.8 million, right, for this year. Next year comes. Let's start with the $94.8 million. Shave off $7.25 from Chris Young, you're at $87.55 million to start. Okay? Now they have contract upgrades. Castro is going to add on another $1 million for next year. So instead of making, let me see his numbers. Instead of making, give me 1 second. I had his contract details here somewhere. Instead of making $5 million this year, he's going to make $6 million next year. So now the payroll would bounce up by $1 million. So then it would go to $88.55 million. And then Cargo's contract is going to go up substantially by $5.5 million. Okay, so from 10.5 to 5.5, so it's going to be at $16 million next year. So then the Mets payroll would then bounce up to an even $94 million. Okay, still that's going to be less than what it was in 2014. Okay, so that's still great news. And with that, they're going to have a lot of wiggle room to sign maybe a closer and some additional bench pieces, because we know Bobby Bray was probably not going to come back. Then at that point, they're only going to have a guy like Anthony Recker on the bench, Ruben Tejada, Eric Young Jr., and Eric Campbell. They're still missing another outfield bat off the bench, unless they bring up like Kirk Neuenhuis or something. But regardless, they need some more pieces. The bullpen is obviously going to get a huge upgrade with Bobby Parnell. They're going to have Pedro Strop. With Harvey coming back in the rotation, that's going to bounce somebody out of the rotation into the bullpen. So by making the trades this year, let's focus on this year. With the Dylan G trade and the Noah Syndergaard trade, the rotation for this year would then be constructed as Colon, Wheeler, Neese when he comes back from the DL, DeGrom, and then Montero is going to have to get sent up to be in the rotation, or Daisuke. But since Neese is gone, Daisuke is going to be in the rotation with Montero most likely. And then once Neese comes back, Matsuzaka is probably going to get taken out of the rotation with Montero. So then Daisuke will get moved to the bullpen, and then for the rest of the year, you're looking at the bullpen of Mejia, Familia, Black, Pedro Strop, Herman, Edgin, and Daisuke. That's what you're looking at, and maybe Dana Evelyn. And then next year, Harvey's back in the rotation, Parnell's back in the bullpen. The Mets should go out and pounce on a closer. There's a lot of closers out in the open market next year. There's Houston Street, there's Sergio Romo, there's Casey Jansen. I would go for Sergio Romo, the guy that's won 2 World Series with the Giants now. The Giants, they're probably going to let him go. They have another closer in the works there, so the Mets should pounce on Sergio Romo and give him like a 3-year. I would give Sergio Romo a 3-year, $25 million contract, so he can make $8.5 million per year. That's very realistic for a closer like him. And then if you do that, you're looking at the payroll to then bounce up to $102.5 million for next year. Okay, and then obviously with the Pedro Strop contract upgrade, which is another $1 million, the Mets' final payroll would then be 100. Well, not final, but the Mets payroll would jump up to $103.5 million. Now, to add in the final computations, the arbitration raises, the projected arbitration raises based on this year was like around $12 million. So next year, I would estimate it to be around $15 million. The Mets' final payroll for next year would be hovering around $118.5 million, which is exactly where the Mets should be for 2015. Now you're looking at 2015, a potential rotation with Harvey, Wheeler at the top, with Colon, Neese, and either DeGrom or Montero, but I'm leaning towards DeGrom. Montero gets pushed to the bullpen to replace Daisuke, and then in the bullpen you're looking at the closer, Sergio Romo, setup guys, Bobby Parnell and Henry Mejia, second-tier guys in Vic Black and Jairus Familia, and then you're going to have Pedro Strop, you're going to have Josh Edgin, and you're going to have long relief, the sixth man in the rotation, Rafael Montero, which means Daisuke is going to have to get sent down to AAA or released, and then Herman's going to get sent down to AAA. That's what the rotation is going to look at in 2015, and then in 2016, once Colon's contract's off the books, then you're looking at a rotation set for the Mets in terms of being Matt Harvey, Zach Wheeler, Jonathan Neese, DeGrom, and Montero. The bullpen still with Romo, Parnell, Mejia, Familia, Black, Strope, Herman, and Daisuke, or Edgin, I should say. You're looking at a good team at that point. And then in terms of the prospects, the Mets are going to keep a lot of prospects after these trades. You still have Zach Wheeler. You still have Travis Darnell, Montero, DeGrom, Dominic Smith, who's going to be the first baseman of the future, most likely for the Mets. You have Dilson Herrera, most likely the future second baseman of the Mets, if anything happens to Murphy, if he gets traded, which I believe he should not get traded. You have Ahmed Rosario, the shortstop. You have the pitchers Domingo Tapia and Corey Mazzoni, and then of course you have the other lefty coming up in the system, who's coming up rapidly now, who's everyone's talking about now, and that's Steven Matz. Okay, so if anything, if the Mets ever want to trade Jonathan East, they have Steven Matz. So I believe the Mets should get all this done, and I want your guys' reaction to this. What do you guys think? Should the Mets really pull these trades off? Is this a little too bold? Right now, the Mets have been playing really well lately. They are now 41 and 49. 8 games under 500, 8 games behind the Braves and Nationals for first place, only 3 games behind the Marlins for third place, and they have a 2-game lead over the Phillies in fifth place. So the Mets are currently on a 3-game winning streak. They have 2 games left now against the Braves in this 4-game set, and then they're going to play 3 games against the Marlins over the weekend before the All-Star break is finally here. And right now, Sandy Alderson, the Mets GM, has said, based on the Mets 10 games right now, okay, the 4-game set against the Braves, the 3 games against the Marlins, and then the 3 games that they just played before they played the Braves, which are the Rangers, is going to base on whether the Mets are buyers or sellers. Right now, if you ask me, the Mets are buyers because the Mets won 2 out of 3 against the Rangers, and they just won the first 2 games against the Braves. If they win today, they win the series against the Braves. And then you're looking at 7 games out, you know? And if the Mets sweep the series, then 6 games out, they're right back in it. So I don't see why the Mets shouldn't do it. So, message me, guys. What do you guys think about what I just talked about in this video? I know it's been a long time since I made a video. This is the biggest gap I've had in terms of my last video and this video. It's a month gap. I do apologize for that. It's just, I'm not going to say I was giving up on the Mets because I'm a true-ass Mets fan, hardcore. But I just feel like there was not really much going on until the A's and Cubs trade happened, that all of a sudden the Mets have trade rumors flying by, and not in terms of being sellers, in terms of being buyers. So I decided to make a video about it. I had to get this out there. So what do you guys think about it? I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear you guys comment. I'm going to comment right back to you guys as soon as I possibly can, like I normally do. And I'm going to come out with another video. I can't promise when that's going to be. Most likely it's going to be after the All-Star break because I want to see what happens in terms of the trade deadline. And then, of course, I'm going to make a video dedicated surely to the trading deadline. If it's any other big trades that happen or any big moves that happen outside of the Mets organization, I will probably mention them in the video as well, just to be fair. Because this I'm obviously a really Mets biased channel that I have here. But you know, also, you know, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We have faith, Mets fans. We have faith. The Mets GM Sandy Alderson can get this done. It can clearly get this done. So he needs to pounce on this trade for Starlin Castro. Carlos Gonzalez is more of a pipe dream, but of course that's also realistic of happening based on the trade pieces that I threw out there. So that's it, guys. I'm gonna call it here. I'm Metallic28. Until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully the Mets sweep the Braves and they win at least 2 out of 3 against the Marlins. But that's it. I'm calling it for here, guys. I'm Metallic28, and I'm out.